Привет. Мой хотел быть два, Tiraspol. А
Бендер.
Бендер. Два.
Два, да.
96 за 2.
After a short journey from Chisinau, we have arrived in the de facto independent country of Transnistria, or in Transnistria it's often referred to as the PMR, the Pridnestrovian Moldavian Republic. And this is a small enclave within the Republic of Moldova that acts on an independent de facto basis, that we are going to explore a bit more of the history, of the sights, of the sounds, of the scenes, of the culture today.
That's it.
Let's do it. Поехали. Right. So we are now in one of two towns that we'll see today in the PMR, in Transnistria, the town of Benderi. So join us on a little walk around. First things first, they operate a different currency here in Transnistria or Pridnestrovia. So we've got to change our Moldovan lei into the Pridnestrovian ruble.
The ruble, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a 1-to-1. So yeah, get some hard currency before we before the day ensues. After making a bit of a scene about the condition of our hard currency, the good folks at Agroprom Bank have sorted us out with some Transnistrian dosh. So we've got here, what's this? It's not as if the condition of their money is great. Got here the 100 rubles. So yeah, right, let's get spending those bad boys. So, what's in the name? Transnistria. Well, the Nistria comes from the river behind us, which is the river Dniester. And in Moldova and internationally, you'll hear this called Transnistria. However, that's not a name that the people here like, because trans means from, right across. And so they argue that this is a very Chisinau, Moldovan-centric view of looking at this land, because you're basically naming it based on how you look at it from the Moldovan side. So they prefer the name Pridnestrovia, yeah, in Russian, which means along the banks of the Dniester. And that covers the fact that we are now here in Bender on the western bank of the Dniester. And a little later on, we will head over into the eastern bank of the Dniester to the capital of this land, Tiraspol. This land, do you see how I like to that? Neutral?
Yeah, this constituency.
This constituency, this territory. So you can see here from this sign, Pridnestrovia is not Transnistria, that it's quite a touchy subject here. And we'll definitely be avoiding the T words, won't we, Matthew?
We will,
in the company of others here on the streets of the PMR, the Pridnestrovian Moldavian Republic.
That's right.
There you go, I've been to school as well. We've only got 12 hours here in the PMR. When are we due back? Is it 8:20? I think the last bus is at 6:20, so we're on a bit of a time schedule here. Just get some of this beef. Right, so Transnistria, Pridnestrovia, plays a lot on its Soviet identity. And in fact, when there was a vote to break up the Soviet Union and move to a more federated model, Transnistria was one of the only parts of the Soviet Union that actually voted for the continuity of the Soviet Union. It now markets itself as the natural successor of the Moldovan Soviet Socialist Republic. And as a result of that, as you walk around the streets of this unrecognized land, you'll often find all of the trappings, all of the paraphernalia that you would associate with the Soviet Union. So, because of that, we have behind us a statue of no more less than Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, and that won't be the last one that we see here on our little day trip to the PMR. look at that. Look at that. Pretty cool, isn't it? Okay, right, so we're now at the site of the old Bender railway station that you can see just behind us. And yeah, you can see that all that's here now today in terms of trains is this rather splendid looking Soviet locomotive behind us. Now, during its Soviet heyday, Bender was a regional transport hub, not just for Moldova, but also for Ukraine as well. It would serve all of this kind of Black Sea region. So you can see why there's a bit of nostalgia about the Soviet Union in this land, because it's now very isolated as a result of its status. The trains no longer run here in Bender or in Transnistria as a whole, but certainly the pride that there was such a regional hub here in Bender remains. Yeah, nicely preserved that palace of culture in front of us, what you'd often find in any upstanding Soviet town. Yeah. Right, so you'll often find these mosaics in ex-Soviet countries, and Transnistria is no exception. So this is one here of Fat Frumos, the beautiful sun in Romanian. So Fat Frumos is a childhood folkhood hero. He's often in tales, going on wild adventures. In this one he's slaying a dragon. And what I find quite interesting about this mosaic is it shows the connection between Transnistria and its Romanian speakers. There is a Romanian minority here that still lives. However, in this day and age, that kind of plurality is not really recognised at all. Transnistria very focused on its kind of ties to the Russian-speaking world. But yeah, really cool and well-maintained mosaic here in Mendari. So we've just wandered into a park on the banks of the Dnester. So we've just wandered into a park here. Looks a bit abandoned, but from what I've researched, a few sites of interest. I kind of find it hard to get a zoom on the sheep. There's just some sheep in the background there on the western banks of the Dnester.
Eastern bank, yeah?
Well, we're on the eastern bank. They're on the western, aren't they?
Really? I'm sure we were on the west.
No, we'd be on the eastern, wouldn't we? Because we're the other side of the Dnester. Wouldn't you say?
Maybe we are.
To be continued. Right, so behind me here you've got a rather interesting monument, obviously from the Soviet era, and it just says on it, Vlast Sovietami, power to the Soviets. And I think one interesting thing to remark is that Transnistria always formed part of the Soviet Union all the way from its establishment in 1918 all the way through to 1991, and that was in contrast to the Republic of Moldova, that of course was part of Romania during the interwar period. And I think that is part of where this conflict lies, that Transnistria has always historically considered itself part of Russia, the Russian Empire, whereas Moldova didn't. And so yeah, that is why you'll see far more monuments commemorating Soviet victories here in PMR than you will in Moldova. I stand corrected. We are on the west bank of the Dnester. This is why I've got you with me. It's not often that you bump into a billboard of the Tsar Nicholas and his family, and apparently it just says "Tuj prosti gosudar, chad zabludishich tvoich," which apparently means "Forgive, O sovereign, your wayward children." So obviously some Tsarist sympathisers here in Bender. Just below it you've got something more conventional, just the defenders of the motherland of all times. The what does that say? Zashitan kam Zikhrimium. Yeah, so there we go. The Russian nostalgia, or the nostalgia for Russia for all ages, is alive and well here in Transnistria. Right, so we talked a bit about how Transnistria voted to stay in the Soviet Union, that they're a bit worried about the government in Chisinau and pursuing pro-Romanian policies. We talked a bit about how Transnistria was always part of the Soviet Union from 1918 onwards, and basically when the Soviet Union fell apart in 1991, what that resulted in eventually, just a year after, in 1992, was a civil war between the authorities in Chisinau in Moldova and Transnistria. And this here is a memorial to some of the people on the Transnistrian side who died in that conflict, which basically was resolved to a certain extent because the Russian army, the Soviet army I should say, came here in 1992 as a peacekeeping force, and since then essentially this conflict between Transnistria and Moldova has been frozen, and that is why you have that separate state here, the customs point that we had to go through in the morning. It's as a result of that 1992 conflict that still remains unresolved here on the banks of the Dniester. So far we've covered a lot of the Soviet and the Russian influence in terms of the history of this place. However, given its strategic location on the banks of the Dniester, there was actually a historical and military presence here far before the Russians arrived in the 19th century. So we're going to go explore some of that now.
Right now.
So, before the Russian presence was really solidified here in the 19th century, this was very much within the Turkish sphere of influence. Of course, the Ottoman Empire extended all the way up into Moldova, Romania, and then into the Balkans after that. And this point here, Bender, was, through being on the Dniester River, a key waypoint for the Turks, and as a result of that they built a very impressive fortress here that we are now going to try and visit, the Bender Fortress. Right.
Два человека. Спасибо большое.
Спасибо. You're now in the Capsule, the fortress. So, from what I've read, a fortress was originally built here by the Moldavians, by Stefan Cel-Mare, the great Moldovan king. Of course, the western bank of the Dniester being the natural frontier between the Romanian-speaking peoples of this area in the medieval era, and the Russians. So he originally built it, and then the Turks took it over in the kind of 1530s, I think. It was in the 16th century. It was during the time of Suleiman the Magnificent, you know, like the height of the Ottoman Empire. And it was Suleiman's famous architect, Mimar Sinan himself, who built the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul alongside other great monuments across the Ottoman Empire. He was commissioned to build this fortress here in Bender. So, a great man himself. Don't know if he ever graced these lands or not, but certainly did the plans for the fortress in front of us today that the Turks used all the way up until this was taken off them in 1812 and forms the land of Bessarabia, constituent part of the Russian Empire. Oh, Jesus, steep. We're all bended out for one day, so it's time, Matthew, for us to head to the PMR's illustrious capital.
Let's go.
Let's go. Давай. trolley bus it is? 15, да?
Но он в депо едет. Вам подойдет, да.
Да, окей. So, now on the trolley bus, heading to Tiraspol. We've got one stop across the way. We're just heading across the banks of the Dniester here.
Вот по стадиону. Проходите в магазин «Фанат» вон с этой стороны. С этой стороны. Прямо и отходите с этой стороны.
Спасибо.
Всё.
Очень приятно. Удачи вам.
Удачи вам.
Удачи. Удачи. So we've arrived on the outskirts of Tiraspol, and we're in search of the local football team and a big part of Pridnestrovia's modern identity. So just... okay. Спасибо.
Через ворота.
Спасибо.
Отсюда уже можете так.
Спасибо. So, just behind us here is the stadium of Sheriff Tiraspol, which is the biggest football team here in Pridnestrovia. They often win the Moldavian League. However, they were most famous for beating Real Madrid here on a hallowed evening a few years ago. I remember watching the highlights. So, yeah, I'll tell you more about the name Sheriff in a minute. But first, we're going to try to see if we can get ourselves a football top.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Здравствуйте. Мы ищем магазин для купить футболку
Шерифа.
команды.
Идете прямо, у знака парковки поворачиваете направо. В здании написано Академия футбола. Заходите сразу же.
Окей. Спасибо.
Это далеко?
Нет, вот здание.
Вот здание.
Да.
Окей.
Синий
Well,
называется Фанат.
okay. It feels like we've been walking for many minutes in this quite inclement heat to find the superstore, the fan superstore.
Фанат.
Yeah.
Is this it?
I think so. Oh, here we go, we're in business.
Yeah, I'm away.
We've got to go for, I call it the away one though, don't you? Call it the yellow? Is that the home one, or was that the away one?
I think home's the other. Попробуй.
Можно помолить.
What are you, medium, straight?
I would say I'm more Bolshoi.
Большой.
Right, how do I look?
That's actually good.
It's
Yeah,
hot,
good,
isn't it?
good fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So Sheriff is not just the biggest football team in Tiraspol, in Pridnestrovia, it's also the biggest supermarket as well. So it's the biggest network of gas stations. So it's by far the biggest company in Pridnestrovia, to the point where it has quite a lot of influence over the politics here, over the ruling of Moldavian party, to the point that whilst there's a lot of Soviet paraphernalia, communist paraphernalia around us, the state itself is actually run by essentially the conglomerate that is Sheriff. I'm speaking very quietly, let's go. Right, we've arrived at our final stop, the Transnistria, capital of Tiraspol. Unfortunately, we've overshot on the way here, so we wanted to show you the monument to the first Moldovan power plant. Big tourist monument here in the capital.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just gonna have to press on, I think, because we do have a time pressure. We need to get out of here by sunset, don't we?
Yeah.
Right, so continuing our foray into the modern politics of Transnistria, we've got in front of us here the Parliament of Transnistria. In front of the Parliament of Transnistria is our good man, again, Vladimir Lenin. See if I can get a close-up of Lenin here. Let's have a look. Can I zoom this? There we go, there's the big man standing proudly outside the one true successor state to the Moldavian Soviet Socialist Republic. Just a guy here Side of the Transnistrian Parliament with his convertible BMW, getting photos by the Lenin Monument and the Parliament. If that's not an ideological kerfuffle, I don't know what is. Yeah. So interesting war monument here in Tiraspol. So a clear connection being made between the conflict in 41 to 45, the Great Patriotic War that the Soviet Union fought against the Germans, Afghanistan here in the 70s and 80s, and then up here you have people who were victims of the war with Moldova between 1990 and 1992. So clear connection being made between those Soviet conflicts during the time of the Union and the conflict with Moldova thereafter, again showing the kind of continuity between Transnistria and that Soviet state and ideology. Starting to feel a little peckish after half a few hours
Serious heat.
hitting the streets of the PMR, so I think it's time to go find something typical of the region.
Some refreshments.
Indeed. Let's go. Привет. Здравствуйте. Maybe one of them?
Yeah, sure. Do you know?
Yeah, go for it, yeah. Да. Yeah? Вкусно?
Очень.
Очень вкусно?
Это манго.
Манго. О, тропикальный.
Одно манго, одно шоколад.
33.
Да, одну шоколад, одну 30.
Окей. Это квас.
Да.
Ну, квас. Хорошо, спасибо. Один час квас. Кваса.
3 рубля маленький стаканчик.
Окей, маленький?
Да.
Да. 3 рубля.
Один?
Один, да, один.
Хорошо.
Пожалуйста.
Это мало.
Да.
Сразу говорю.
Would you want two? One each?
Это вкусно, но это вам мало.
Вкусно, да.
Yeah.
О, два. Можно два? Два.
Хорошо.
Okay. Удачи, удачи. Right, so we've just stopped for some well, it's just a little aperitif, isn't it, Matthew?
Glass and ice cream.
It's a bit fizzy, isn't it? Fermented. Reminds me a bit of kombucha.
Yeah.
That. Nice, goes down well, doesn't it, on a very hot summer's day. What's your thoughts on the local ice cream going here?
Very nice indeed.
Mm.
It looks like it's actually
Very creamy and very mangoey.
yeah.
I wouldn't expect to get such tropical flavours in the PMR. What a world it is we live in. Just in front of us is a statue of General Suvorov, who founded Tiraspol. So again, that's why PMR quite strong links to Russia. This city was actually founded by the Russians, so quite different to Bender, founded by the Turks, Chisinau, founded by the Moldovans originally. Then you can see you've got the Transnistrian flag just to the left of us as well, only flag in the world with the hammer and sickle still on it, and we think, though we're not sure, that the flags to the left and right of it are the Abkhazian and the South Ossetian flags, the only two other non-recognised states at an international level, but recognise Transnistria, they recognise one another. So, more curiosities in the PMR.
This is the place.
We found, haven't we? There we go, that's it. So, bust of the big man himself, there he is again. So we've arrived here in the backing USSR Soviet Nostalgia restaurant here in Tiraspol, and see you've got all your stock paraphernalia, your Marx, your Lenin, and even your Stalin. Not often that you see him these days.
Here we have decorated. Oh, took the hat off.
Right. Are we ready once again, Matthew, to push west?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Давай, поехали. Cool, isn't it? Yeah, this serves all the authentic Soviet cuisine, but in true Soviet nostalgia style. You've got to wait an hour and a half to get it. So, on that note, Matt and I think, are gonna call it quits. Get out of Dodge. It's just time for one last beer in Tiraspol. Na zdrowie. Na zdrowie. Matthew, it's that time again. What are your thoughts on Transnistria? How did you enjoy the day? What are your reflections?
Well, as I was just saying to you, we're unrecognised state with a bit of a reputation as a sort of Soviet hangover and backwater. It's actually very pleasant and
Actually, very pleasant.
seemingly affluent place with very little difference than what we've seen in Moldova. But yeah, we enjoyed it. Enjoyed the charm, the slightly kind of sleepy charm of Bender.
Indeed.
I
I definitely take Bender over, or Benderi. We never quite got to the bottom of that, did we? Over Tiraspol.
the Korean shop there.
Another Korean. They love a Korean shop here, don't they?
We do.
K-Beauty's big in Tiraspol.
Fortress, Bender Fortress is quite spectacular, and it's a kind of location right on the Dniester River. And yeah, Tiraspol itself is kind of, in many ways, yes, a fairly unremarkable
Yeah.
21st century Eastern European city, with the addition of some sort of Soviet monuments. So we've had a nice enough time.
Indeed, I would refer to Transnistria as the Denis Irwin of former Soviet Socialist republics. A solid 7 out of 10. You know what you're getting every time.
Should be very careful saying that if Claire is concerned. The world's biggest Denis Irwin fan.
On that note, I think it's time to close the vlog before I say anything more controversial. So, do wystrzecie.